There's something about October. It makes me sentimental. I think it dates back to when I was in high school. I played football. And our games were really a scene from Friday Night Lights. We played on Friday nights under those bright lights, and we would draw about 2,000 to 3,000 people to watch our games. But the best part about playing football in high school is I got to play with all my friends. My best friend Richie Craver was our quarterback, and he was the master at taking the three-step drop and throwing the ball right down the seam. And Kevin Cooling, aka Cool, he was our cocky inside linebacker. He was a tall, skinny beanpole, but bam! He could hit like a Mack truck. And Dave Palzinski, aka P, he was our running back, and he had both speed and desire to burn. And all Dave needed was just a little crease when he got the ball, and you knew he was going to take it to the house. And Matt Bolaris was our tight end. He was big, but his hands were as smooth as silk. In the spirit of the Anglo-Saxon tradition, he was mean, he was tough, and he was loyal to a T. And me, yours truly, introducing number 17, wide receiver, Craig Champagne! I'd come out in the field, and I'd hear the adulation of the fans, and I knew I was on that field and I was ready for game time. Deep down, one of the things I loved most about playing football was my nickname, Champ. One who rises above all others. Champ, second to none. Champ! Oh, I was my name. But even though I wanted to win the game, like all my teammates, deep down what I secretly prayed for was for Richie to take that snap from center, go back, and just throw that ball deep. Because that was my time. When I would run down the field, down the sidelines, and I'd look at it, I'd catch the ball. And like Dave too, I would also take it to the house. And when I got to the end zone, I scored, I put down the ball and I shake it. Shake it. Oh. With our egos, both on and off the field, we had attitude. We were good. We were good. And we knew it. Corey Mullins was one of my teammates. Just to set the record straight, I didn't hang out with Corey Mullins. They have anything against the guy, but we did not hang out. Sometimes we might talk during lunch, or we might talk during study hall, or maybe on the weekend if we happen to end up at the same place, we talk for a bit. But we didn't hang out. Even though I'm sure he tried his best, Corey Mullins wasn't agile enough to start. He wasn't strong enough to start. He wasn't fast enough to start. Corey Mullins just wasn't good enough. And when I went to school, the first string really didn't hang out with the second string. After all, I was champ. After high school came college. And again, on holiday breaks, I would go home, go out, see the old crew, if you will. And again, once in a while, I would run into Corey. And we might tell a story or two about college, share a laugh or two. But after that evening, we'd be off on our own separate ways again, off to school. I eventually graduated from college, but an unforeseen event happened to me. I had a really hard time finding a job out of school. I filled out my applications, went to a lot of interviews, but I couldn't land a job. In fact, things got so bad, I moved in back home. I was staying with Mom and Dad. And one evening I just had to get out of the house. So I took a ride, took a drive. And I realized I needed some gas. So I pulled into the local Hess station. And I put gas in my car. And as I was putting gas in my car, I looked over and I realized that directly across from me was none other than Corey Mullins. And something amazing happened that evening. We talked. but I mean really talked. We talked about our inability to find work. We talked about the current states of our relationships. We talked about the general direction of our lives. We talked about the future. We talked. And what was really amazing was that night, I remember, it was an October night in upstate New York. And it was really cold. It was so cold that you could see your breath in the air, but that didn't stop us from talking. But after about 20 minutes or so, it was time to go our separate ways. And I remember as Corey was getting into his car, he stopped for just a moment, and he turned around and he said, "Hey Craig, we should hang out sometime." And I said, "I'd like that." And he said, "I'll call you." And I watched Corey Mullins as he got into his car and he drove off into the nights. I never did get that phone call, but I did manage to see Corey a few weeks later. His face was on the 6 o'clock news. It was reported that Corey Mullins had drowned. I remember the moment I heard the news, that I was confronted with a sad but undeniable truth. I liked Corey, and I think he liked me. But for some reason, we were never truly friends. Why? Why? Whether it's a high school in upstate New York in 1990 or West Orange High School in 2010, there are always cliques and clusters to be found. People always find a way to create barriers amongst themselves. There's always this attitude of us and them. Make no mistake about it, in a very real sense, we still live in a segregated age. But it takes many forms. It could be the first string and the second string, the cool and the uncool, the students who are labeled as smart and those who are labeled as not, the students who are labeled as attractive and those who are labeled as not. But it extends into the political arena as well. You have Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, but it goes into matters of race, matters of faith tradition, matters of sexual orientation. Make no mistake about it. The barriers are all around us, and we still indeed live in a segregated age. But there's still something about October, and it still makes me sentimental. I still think about Corey Mullins, but when I do so, I no longer ask myself why. It's counterproductive. It's a disservice to him. But out of respect for a person who was not my friend, I now try to live every day with a new perspective. Whenever I meet a new student, or a new teacher, or a new custodian, or any person in any avenue of my life, I now ask myself, why not? The greatest education you can ever receive is never found in a textbook, and it's never in a PowerPoint presentation. The greatest education you will ever receive in your life comes from the relationships you make with other people. If there's anything I hope you get from this story today, it's simple. I hope that you will learn something I learned far too late in life. I hope you will always remember, and I hope you will always believe that there is always room for one more friend. There is always room for one more friend. I am honored to be your teacher, and I'm proud to be your friend. And I thank you so much for your time.